Welcome everyone to the Regenerative Leadership Program live preview. Really good to see all of your faces today. Thanks for choosing to spend 30 minutes of your time with us. Today's live preview is really all about giving you a little bit of a sense, hello Bill, giving you a little brief overview of our philosophy around regenerative leadership, and we'll share a little bit about the program, its design and its intention, and then there'll be some time at the end for some Q&A. And as I said, we're recording, so if there's anyone on your team or others who might be interested, we'll be sharing this out, so you can feel free to share that with them. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna hand it over to Jeff to dive into the preview.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome familiar faces that we know and some new faces as well. Again, this is just a really informal snapshot of a program that we're really excited to be launching later in the year. And some of this might be review for you all, but just want to give you a taste of kind of how we're thinking about leadership, how we're approaching it, what the program will entail. We'll give a brief presentation and then really open it up for questions about both the content as well as mostly about the program and what we can answer for you for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Great. So for those of you who might be new to In Rhythm, we are an organizational design firm that this is our shared purpose of our team. We believe we exist, we spend every day, we put our energy into transforming how we work in a way that releases unlimited potential while being in rhythm with life, so that all individuals, teams, organizations, networks, and communities experience abundance and resilience now and into the future. And we were founded in 2009 as an international organization. Between our whole team, it's probably more than 50 now years of experience designing, operating, resourcing organization networks and communities in every sector, nonprofit, for-profit. And we are really honored to be working around the world on all 6 continents and helping organizations, helping communities, helping individuals address some of the most pressing social and environmental issues of our time. So what do we mean by regenerative leadership? This is really what we'll actually explore for a lot of the leadership program. But to give you a sense of how we're approaching it, what the questions we're asking are, if we look at the word leadership, it comes from the Latin root leiden, or meaning to guide or bring forth. And the question is if we are guiding and bringing forth something, what is our model of the thing that we are bringing forth? We have to have some mental model, some idea about what it is we are leading, what it is that we are trying to bring forth. And many of us are here, most of us focus our work around the idea of an organization. Even if you're here as an individual, I'm sure we are thinking of creating or leading a group of people in some form of organization to bring something forth. And the dominant model of what we are bringing forth and how people work together in the world right now is that idea of a machine. If you Google how to run my company, business, organization, you get bombarded with images of gears and metaphors of machines and talking about how to think about what we want to bring forth into the world as this mechanistic machine. And it's so prevalent, it's embedded in our language. If we think about the language we use with each other when talking about work, how many of us have said things like, we're working like a well-oiled machine, or I don't have bandwidth for that. Comparing our own human passion, energies, and genius to amounts of ones and zeros in a wire that allow us to talk to each other, which is amazing, but it's not the same as human potential and energy. We've got that dialed in, we need to move the needle on that. And so we spend a lot of the time, we'll spend about the first month talking about the foundations in this course, um, uh, thinking about what are the consequences of this machine model. And to give a little bit of a preview of it, we talk about the equity issues, the economic equality issues, we talk about the planetary issues that this is creating. But even if the focus is how to have people work well together, to bring forth something, to lead something with people, it's also not working well. This is a poll that Gallup puts out every year and saying that only 13% of people are engaged at work, while 24% are actively disengaged, which includes sabotaging the organization that they are working for. If you want to translate this into economic terms, if that's meaningful for you, Gallup estimates that this is costing our economy 450 to 550 billion dollars in lost productivity per year. So we see this as a design issue. We see that we need a very different model for both leadership and organizations and what we are trying to lead. And we summarize it this way. We'll give this as a preview and we go into a lot more detail about this in the program. Oops, that's not. Oh, interesting. Okay, sorry about that. I'll get to that in a moment. So, sorry, a little out of order. Before we get to that slide, part of the issue is that we think of problems, the difference between complicated and complex problems in very similar ways. We often use those two words synonymously. And actually, this mechanistic approach works very well for complicated problems where there are predictable inputs, you can follow a series of steps, and there are predictable outputs. But many of us in this today's world are working with complex problems. These are where there's dense interdependencies, nonlinear change, and things become quickly unpredictable. And in general, complicated solutions are great for things we make. Making an iPhone is a very complicated problem, but it's not very complex. It's you can follow a series of steps. Samsung did it, copied it. They have a great product out there. It's pretty predictable outputs. You could say Apple copied someone else as well. Complex problems, on the other hand, are more things like raising a child or things we manage. There's not a model out there. And so leadership for complexity is a very different thing than leadership for complicated problems. And so here at In Rhythm, and something we'll explore deeply in the leadership course, is if we start from the premise of life as a model versus a machine as a model, if we think of how do we lead and bring forth something into the world that's living, how do we imagine and treat our projects, the people working on our projects, the organizations as living, what opportunity does that give us? What does that mean? What assumptions do we need to let go of? And so we'll spend a lot of time in the program exploring this. And the first thing we need to do there is think about what life actually is. On one level, of course, it's intuitive. We look around us, we are living. But if we're trying to model and design after it, we need to do a little bit more exploration in it. So we'll spend some time in the course talking about what is life. And we'll start talking about different models of life, and some are more meaningful and some are not. Some are more robust and some are not. One example is, here's one version, one view of what life is that Disney has put forth. And we'll talk about what's going on here. Is this an accurate model of how life actually works? And we'll contrast it to other views of the circle of life, which is and we'll talk about what this is making fun of and what it's bringing forth in this idea of life and living. So at the heart of the program is this idea that if we start with the machine design, we the standard model out there, the standard model of leadership says, well, what we're building is a machine. And so what we need to do is come up with blueprints, come up with approaches, predictable approaches, and we engineer a set of best practices. There's all kinds of different models of leadership out there. Do this, do that. Here's a bunch of research supporting it. And actually, that's not what this program is. This program is a chance for you to explore what it means to lead with life in mind. And we don't have a prescription for what that is, because that idea of a prescription or a blueprint is actually already inherently part of a mechanistic thinking. So we may have all been in an experience like this. We're out there, we've heard a lot about agile design, agile leadership, scrums. A lot is coming out of Silicon Valley now, and what has worked phenomenally well in Silicon Valley. We assume we can take those sets of best practices and apply them to our context. And since we invest a lot of time into that, we maybe invest some resources, we're going to make it work. So we enforce that into a set of prescriptive structures for our context, no matter whether we really think it's a valuable, whether we really know it's going to be applicable to our context or not. And this ultimately degenerates the initial design. It degenerates the system we're working with. The thing about machines is that they are designed to degenerate over time, right? They are dependent on constant input and replacement of expendable parts. Versus if we start with what we know best about life and living systems, the ecosystems around us, then we use that to inform a set of principles for design, a set of principles for leadership. And this is what we hope to really bring forth for you all, if you are taking this course, is here are a set of principles to think about. How will you lead? What is your process of leadership with those principles in mind? And with those principles, we'll facilitate that exploration for you by providing you with some flexible frameworks, some processes to work through, some design processes to think through, to spark your own exploration of what leading in a regenerative way means for you. And we know that this will ultimately regenerate the systems you are all part of, and because it regenerates living systems. So the thing about a machine design, as I mentioned, we constantly need to put more energy, more inputs into it to keep the system running. The exciting thing about leading or designing with life in mind is that ultimately living systems involve less external energy. They self-maintain. And this is the possibility. How do we lead? How do we create conditions for? How do we create organizations that are self-maintaining, self-regenerating? And we know this is a big shift in perspectives, in operations, in mindsets. And the Regenerative Leadership Program grew out of organizations who've been working with us, who've been doing the design work and saying, yeah, now we really need to broaden this. We really need to think about, how do I lead my team through this? How do I provide those shifts in perspectives and behaviors in my organization, in my staff, in my community that I'm working with every day? So we'll explore these key insights from living systems, that only living systems are regenerative, that life itself can only be understood as a holistic property, that regeneration is and life is itself emergent and decentralized, and that life creates conditions necessary for life, and that life is dependent on a wide diversity of interdependent relationships. We'll keep coming back to these key insights to say, what does that mean for our leadership style? What does that mean for our teams? We'll provide you with some regenerative design principles and ask, how do we design and operate in a new way? I'll just take one of these. If we look at interdependence, we understand that there's inherent value in all kinds of relationships. What does that mean for our leadership then? How do we approach leadership that recognizes the complexity of this interdependence with all of our clients, suppliers, community members, family members, and even competitors? We'll I won't go through all of these now, but just these are some key principles we'll keep coming back to in the program. We'll focus a lot on this idea that organizations, like ecosystems, like soil, have inherent health. And we'll talk about these 4 processes of organizational health and how to lead in a way that creates conditions for health. We'll talk about what do we mean by well-being and leading for whole people, leading for their whole selves, and allowing well-being, and the difference between an engineering concept of resilience, which is more really the idea of robustness, versus an ecological idea of resilience, which is the ability to be in multiple states, multiple stable states. We'll spend a lot of time saying, how do we as leaders create thriving members of whatever system we are a part of? And we see thriving as the intersection of people being able to look after their own well-being, express their unique genius in a defined role that serves the whole that you're a part of. And just some fundamental approaches to this course, how we think about it. One is this quote from Buckminster Fuller, that if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. So this is not a didactic course. We're not going to be, it's not 3 months of us telling you what you should be thinking about. Instead, we're going to provide you tools, and through the use of those tools, you'll develop your own new ways of thinking, and we'll hope to give you the tools to do that for others. And this all might sound great to you. It might sound a little abstract. I just want to make a promise to you. This program is not just abstract ideas. It's very hands-on. And this is the analogy I think about. I'm not a great visual artist. Maybe some of you are. I picked up book after book as a kid, as a teenager, trying to learn to draw. It was always something like this. It was like, okay, if you want to draw an owl, start with 2 circles, get the perspective and scale. And then it was, draw the rest of the effing owl. And I never knew how to get from the 2 circles to a beautiful owl. And we promise you that this is not going to be that program for you. We're not going to just provide 2 circles and tell you to build and lead in a new way. We're going to provide you the series of steps of how to get from 2 circles to the whole owl. We'll go through and talk about this framework, which is a design framework. It's an operational framework. It is a monitoring framework. I won't go through all the details now. We just wanted to introduce you to one of the tools and frameworks that we'll be working through. And I'll leave you with a couple quotes and inspirations that give you a sense of our program. So here is one. It says, the temptation tradition is to lead as a chess master, controlling every move of the organization, must give way to an approach as a gardener, enabling rather than directing. A gardening approach to leadership is anything but passive. The leader acts as an eyes-on, hands-off enabler who creates and maintains an ecosystem in which the organization operates. And you may think, not knowing who this quote from is, this is from a very ecologically minded organization or person. Amazingly, this is a quote from an incredible book called Team of Teams. This is a quote from General Stanley McChrystal, who was head of the anti-terrorism war efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Understanding that this military top-down hierarchical approach to leadership isn't even working for the military anymore. The world is too complex. Military operations are too complex. Donella Meadows reminds us the world is a complex, interconnected, finite, ecological, social, psychological, economic system. And we treat it as if it were not, as if it were divisible, separable, simple, and infinite. Our persistent, intractable global problems arise directly from this mismatch. And we'll ask questions in the program of, what are your organization's unique gifts? Is your organization able to hold complexity? This is at the heart of our program. This is from Adrienne Marie Brown, incredible author and leader, wrote a book called Emergent Strategy. And we'll leave you with this before we talk about the details of the program. Our approach to leadership is the idea that's very captured in this slide. And this is a slide of a restoration project from our friends at the Savory Institute. And the next picture you'll see is this exact same piece of land without any external inputs. No external water, no seeds, no fertilizer. It was just managing what was already there to bring forth this. And so this is what we come back to in each of your contexts. How do you as a leader create the conditions to allow what's already there, the seeds, the potential, all the life that's already there in your context, and how do you bring that forth with a new style of leadership? So there's 3 months to the program. It's a very intensive program, but it's spread out over time. It's very reflective. So the first month will be exploring a lot of these ideas that I've introduced today in a lot more depth, and giving you a chance to work with them and work with some tools. We're calling that the foundations of regenerative leadership. Within that first month, you're each going to actually come up with an idea of a specific project you want to design related to leadership. It might be restructuring a team. It might be creating a new approach to leadership. It might be a training program. It might be whatever is meaningful for you in your context. You're going to come up with a specific project that you will go further designing. The second month, we will lead you through a design process to both demonstrate what regenerative leadership can look like in creation and design of something. And you'll be joining actually a number of other people using the same process, designing in many different contexts. And then in the third month will be a time for you each individually to reflect on your own leadership, what your own shifts in mindsets and behaviors, as well as receive support from all of your peers throughout the program, as well as in Rhythm, of how to actually implement the project you designed in the second month. So I know that was very quick and meant to just kind of plant some seeds and spark some questions, but happy to open it up to any questions you have about the program in particular. Anything about the content, we'll ask you to come to the program to learn more about it. It was very specifically trying to spark your curiosity. It wasn't meant to be comprehensive. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, open it up to questions.
What is the time commitment during the week for it?
Alex?
Yeah. So the time commitment in the first month is really 2 2-hour sessions. In the second month, 2 2-hour sessions per week in the first month. And then in the second month, it's 2 2.5-hour sessions in a week. And the third month's a little bit lighter. It's roughly one session of 2 hours a week. So, that would be the kind of in-session time commitment. And maybe, Jeff, do you want to speak to whether there's, anything outside of the time commitment in live sessions?
Yeah, I'd say in all the months, primarily probably heaviest in the third month is personal time, reflection time, time between our sessions together to be exploring and implementing. First and second month, somewhat as well, we'll be asking you, but not as heavy, not specifically. There's no specific homework to do per se, or it's more reflection time to let things go from your head to your heart, and then we have another session together and introduce some new ideas.
Will there be an organization with cohorts, or is this like an individual experience?
Yeah, both options are possible. I would say if it is an organization, and we've done this with organizations, I would say it's that cohort would be everyone looking to be leaders versus, say, a cohort of a leader with their team. So it might be a number of different. Yeah,
it would be, if there was a cohort, it would be more organizationally based versus the cohort of the regenerative leadership program. And like in the design labs, we have different cohorts. Do you know what I mean? Just wondering if,
Yes. So actually how it's going to work, both and. So
okay.
if you all are interested in joining the 3-month program as a cohort,
Mhm.
that is great. And we encourage that, or as a team. The second month is actually joining the design lab together as a cohort. So whoever is in the leadership program, you'll all be part of the design lab. Is a standalone program we have that's just that single month, but you will all be joining that as a cohort within this larger 3-month context.
Do you have a time that you'll be offering this? Time of the day is what I mean, time of the day. You know, I'm worried about you saying that it's going to be 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm going to have to just be like, no,
Now,
thank you.
I'm pleased to share that it is at a Pacific-friendly time zone, and sessions will start at noon Eastern, which is 9 Pacific.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Throughout the whole program. Great questions.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thanks, Jen. Just put it in the chat. Bill,
I'm sorry. What day does it start? When does it start?
So the start date is.
Look at that.
Oh, there, Jenny.
She's putting it up there, I guess. Thanks.
Boom.
Yeah. Actually, the start date is the last week of September, and that it will be. I don't have a calendar up in front of me, but I think Jen's putting the dates in the chat, and we're happy to circulate specific dates in a follow-up email to you all as well. Yeah. What was there another question?
Looks like we have the December dates in the chat. Is that
Friday, December 3rd.
Do you see the, I put in the chat the other dates too, in October and November? Did you see that?
I don't see it yet.
Okay.
Oh, there wait. Sorry. Would be helpful to scroll up. Sorry, Jen.
All good. And we'll yeah, again, we can send a link to the website and along with the specific dates and everything, but it does start on the September 29th. So Wednesday, September 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, and Bill was asking about cost, so I'm happy to speak to that. We're offering a special to our community, which we can share more details about in an email after this, but currently the cost is $12.99 for an individual, and we do offer payment plans, as well as for a team of 5, it's $551.95. And so we're happy to also extend some discounts to our community, and we do offer scholarships as well. And if anyone is in need of a scholarship, you can get in touch with Jen. We're certainly committed to making this work accessible to everyone. So thanks, Bill, for that question. Antonio has a question on, is the goal greater collaboration? Jeff, do you want to speak to that?
For sure, I mean, a collaborative approach, a more distributed decision-making, more distributed. So how to lead for more collaboration? Sure, for sure. Yeah. That's one aspect of regenerative leadership. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other questions? I know we're at time. If anyone does need to hop off, please feel free, and we'll share more details by email with you. But if anyone does want to stick around, if they have any other questions, our team's happy to hang around and spend some time with you.
I'm going to drop off, but thanks, guys.
Thanks, Janelle. Awesome. So we'll say
Thank
goodbye
you,
to anyone
everyone.
who wants to hop off. Thanks again.
Thanks, Jeff.
Stay on here. I want to talk to the In Rhythm folks for just a second.
Okay, we'll hang on with you, Bill. Thank you.
I know, I'm hanging.
Thanks everyone for joining. Thank you, Jeff. We hope you
Hi,
join the
Bill, by the
program.
way.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Thank you.
I'm making it okay.
Awesome. Awesome. Good to see you.